Hi, okay, this lesson is on statistical distributions. We're going to learn about shapes of distributions and how to interpret them and what that means. We're also going to talk about which statistical values best represent a data set based on what we see. Okay, so if you take a look at this, you'll notice these are two histograms for two different tests in math class. If you look at this, what are some claims that you could make about the two tests? Okay, so you'll kind of notice here in the test number 1 that we have quite a number of students scoring pretty highly on this. Most of the data here is shifted to the right, whereas this one is kind of like the shape is a little bit more symmetrical and there's a lot more in the middle. And we don't have as many scoring very highly here. So if I looked at this test, test 1, I might say, well, students did really, really well. Or I might say, if I was a teacher, I might say, is this test too easy? Do I need to make it a little bit more challenging? Over in test 2, if I look at this one, we don't have very many people scoring very highly. And we have a lot in the middle, which isn't necessarily bad, but a lot of the middle is kind of lower scores, like in the 50 or 60 range. So that might be concerning. Maybe you might say, ooh, is this test a little bit too hard for my students? Is there some stuff that I need to reteach? So the shape of the data that we have on things like this can really help us inform what we do next. Okay, so let's talk about those distributions and how we name them. We really have 3 different ways that we're going to talk about in this class when we look at histograms and box plots. We're going to talk about whether it's skewed left, symmetric, or skewed right. So skewed left, which I think is a little backwards, but most of the data you'll see is right here on the right. So a lot of people would say, oh, well, this then should be skewed right. But it's really about where your sort of tail is. Let me talk about that here in a second. So if I look at the shape of this data, I kind of have like this, okay? And so you'll notice over here, we have a lot more kind of lower numbers, and this is called the tail. And if the tail is on the left, then we say that it's skewed left. Also, same thing here. Down here in the box plot, you'll notice the left whisker of the box and whisker plot is longer. So if this is longer, then we would also say that it's skewed left. So that's what it means, skewed left. So you're looking sort of more at the tail. So let's write that in here. So we say that the data is skewed left when then there's a tail on the left. Okay. Or if it's a box plot, we say the data is skewed left when the whisker on the left is longer. I think of that as still like a tail. Okay. For symmetric, then the shape should be relatively the same. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but if I look at this, it should be pretty close to symmetrical as you shape that out. So this one would, in the histogram, is pretty symmetrical, and then same with the box plot. The whiskers should be very nearly the same. So we say the data is symmetric when it looks the same on both sides. Okay, and then skewed right, again, we're looking at that tail. So this one is kind of right here, and then our tail is in this area, okay? Or here's the longer part of the box and whisker. So we say the data is skewed right, this should say right here, when there's a tail on the right. Okay, we say the data is skewed right when the whisker is on the right. That is longer. So hopefully that makes some sense. Okay. All right, let's take a look. How are the mean and the median impacted by the shape of the graph? So if you can determine what the shape is first, so skewed left, symmetric, or skewed right, then that's going to tell us a little bit about the mean and the median, okay? So if we have it skewed left, then you'll notice the mean is closer to the tail, okay? And the median would be closer to where most of the data is, which hopefully that makes some sense there. So that's pretty important. So then how should we describe that? So what should we use to describe a data set that's skewed left? Well, then we want to use the median to describe the center and the interquartile range. Maybe I should do a highlighter instead for that. Okay, so we want to do the median and the IQR, okay, if it's skewed left. If it's symmetric, the mean should be right in the middle, and so we want to use the mean to describe the center, and then we want to use the standard deviation to describe the variation. So these two are what you're going to do if it's symmetric, okay? And then if it's skewed right, we're going to use the median, okay, and the to describe the center, and we're going to use the IQR again. So really, if it's skewed left or skewed right, we're going to use the median and IQR. If it's symmetric, then we're going to use the mean and standard deviation. Okay. And then additionally, just in general, the mean is closer to the tail of the distribution if it's skewed. Otherwise, it'll be in the center, right? Okay. So here's a table. We're just going to try this and create a histogram and a box plot for the data, describe how it's distributed, and then determine which measures of center and variation are best represented by this data. Okay, so this is a table showing the withdrawals from an ATM in the last 24 hours in dollars. Okay, so we would want to take, even though there's 3 columns, we would enter all this data in our L1 in our calculator still. So we're going to create a histogram and a box plot like we did last time. So let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and type this into my calculator, all of those data entries. So you would want to make sure that's in your notes and then just put it into your calculator. So I have already done this just to save some time. Well, I think I've done this. Maybe not. Okay. All right, let's try this again. Maybe I have not done this. All right. Here we go. Let's see if it's still in there. It is not. Okay, so I'm going to enter this data again. So bear with me. We're going to enter all of this in. There are 24 values, so it's going to take us a little bit of time. 120, 60, 150, 120, 30, 60, 100, 70. That's the first column. So now I'm going to still enter all the other columns will still go in L1. So 100, 40, 80, 60, 50, 200, 150, 40. That's column 2. And the last column, 70, 80, 50, 175, 50, 30, 110, and 100. 24 values. There we go. Okay, now I want to create box and whisker plot. So I want to set up my stat plot. I'm going to turn that on. Okay, and I want, well, actually, let's do the histogram first. We'll do the histogram. Okay, and then I'm going to go to Zoom 9 for Zoom stat. Okay, so this would be the shape of that. So I'd want to copy that into my notes and put that in there. So you can see this appears to be, this is skewed right for sure. So I would write that down, skewed right. I would put that into my notes in a sketch. We also need a box and whisker plot. So I'm going to do that as well. So all you're going to do is just go back to this and then change the type from histogram to the box and whisker plot. This one right here. And then I'm just going to go Zoom 9 again. And I get this. And again, you can see it should match. It should also be skewed right. It is. The whisker on the right is definitely longer. So there we go. Okay. So I have all that information. Now I'm going to put that into, I'm also going to do some calculating of the statistics that I need. So there we go. All right. And I'll come back to that here in a second. All right. So create a box and whisker plot for the data. So I've done that, okay? There, and I put them in there. Or sketch them, however you need to do that. If you're on your iPad, you can take a screenshot and put them in there. The distribution is definitely skewed right. Okay? So that would be the one I'd want to look at. And then when it's skewed right, if you remember, it says up here that we wrote, if it's skewed right, we're looking at this one right here. We want to use the median and the IQR. So I need that information first. So in the median, I'm going to need to look at my calculator. So now my calculator, I have screenshots here. So the median, you can see right there, is 75. So median 75. And then I need the IQR. And remember, the IQR is found by doing Q3 minus Q1. Okay, so in this case, Q3 is 115 on that, minus Q1. Okay. So my IQR is 65. So these are the two values that I want to use when it's skewed right. So that's what we would say, which measures represent this best, the median and the IQR, and then find those values. Okay? All right, well, that is really it for this lesson. Next time we'll talk about normal distributions. Go ahead and write that into your planner and then get working on that assignment. All right, bye. See you.